Welcome everybody to another hour of extreme miniature painting. Today we are doing Dwarvenforge. Now I want to do my Tuesday stream so I can use any company. Now I love Dwarvenforge, but they're very expensive. In my opinion, I can't afford much from Dwarvenforge. I would love all their items and sets, but what I do is I always back their Kickstarter and just buy a little starter set. Now this is the Dreadhollow set, which is a real heavyweight original Dwarvenite piece of work, nicely sculpted, absolutely beautiful. Now what I've done to start with is I have given all the miniatures today a little spray with Army Painter. As you can see, we got this one here as well. They're very nice little miniatures. And I've spray painted everyone with the Rattlecan Army Painter spray paint, and it's not tacky, it's dried perfect, very nice. We've also got some little mushroom rings. I'm sure Tommy would be looking at these thinking, Anyway, let me say hello to people in chat so far. Hello Scorpler, of course, you got Nath, Tommy, Madf, I hope I say that right. Matt's in chat. Who else is there? Anyone else? Music's too loud. Okay, thank you for that. I did ask Scorpler to say something, but obviously she has got her headphones in. Is that better for the music? Hello, Speaking Beast. I'm just sorting out my music because it was a little bit too loud. Oh, did you? Where did you say that? Sorry. So the sound, the music isn't too loud. Yes, that's fine. Oh dear, Scorpler's going to tell me off later. I told you I did. Hello, Music's Touch. Okay, let me just quickly go back to what I was doing. These are all the Dwarvenforge items I could afford. I can't afford a lot with the Dwarvenforge stuff. If Dwarvenforge watches and they want me to do any reviews, they are more than happy to accept all their unpainted miniatures, and I'll do that for them free of charge. Okay, so what I've done so far, I've added the this is just your Army Painter Rattlecan spray, and it's dried perfectly onto the Dwarvenite plastic, and it's not tacky at all. It's really nice. So what I'm going to do is all the dry brushing first on this beast of a miniature. This is I would say this is a 12 by, actually 1, 2, 3, 4. I think this is in inches. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 6 by 6 inch base for your tabletop games. Okay, so I am going to start with some browns, and we're going to just start dry brushing all the parts that we need dry brushing. A very simple paint, but if you bought any of the unpainted Dwarvenforge items, because it does work out cheaper, this is a quick and easy way to get all your Dwarvenite painted up nice and easy. Hi Carlos. So we're just going to start with the browns, and I've got this on a little turntable so I can just fly through it nice and easy. Today we'll be using browns, greens, we've got some grey. So all we're doing is we're going over all the areas we want with our brown. Now you're not going to see much of a difference to begin with, but we're just going over all the wood areas with our brown, real fast and easy. It's a super simple paint today. As you know, I absolutely love doing large miniatures with dry brushing. It's very fast and easy to do. So we're just flying around all the areas which has got some wood effect. Because I've used a brown as my primer. This helps so much because you've already got that earthly effect going on the base. So what we're just doing is adding more browns and greens, and that brown as a primer really takes a lot of the work out of what we need to do to make this miniature pop. Okay, I'm going to get some more paint on my palette. I've got some skeleton bone. I'm using MSP paints for this. Get the old pokey stick out. Takes longer sometimes to take the paint out of the paint pots than it does put it onto the miniature. There we go, got some paint on the palette there. What we're going to do here, I've got some nice olive. Olive is a beautiful, beautiful green. Where is the pokey stick? The pokey stick's here. Pokey stick. The miniature is taking up the whole of the screen today, my lovely, so you can't see what I'm doing too well with the paint. So what I'm doing, I'm just filling my palette up with lots of beautiful colours at the minute. So we got some olive green, we've got some nice wilderness green, hi Michelle, get some wilderness green going in there. We got some cat's eye green. I'm just loading my palette up with some awesome colours that we can add to this base, all with our dry brushing, and then we can do the fine details a little bit later on. And I'm going for some, I got some dirty grey. Now the dirty grey, as you can see on here, we've got little rocks built into the structure. So these will be painted in after we've done with the dry brushing. But I'm going to put it on my palette ready anyway, and save a bit of time. So we got 3 different shades of beautiful grey, of green, sorry. We got one grey, we've got skeleton bone, and we need one more darker brown. Well, actually what I'll do is I shall go for, I got so many colours, I'll just add a bit of black so I can just mix in with some brown. There you go, a bit of black. So mixing some colours. Okay, I'm going to take a nice brush. We're using these big, huge terrain brushes from Army Painter. You can get all these brushes from Mighty Lancer Games. Absolutely fantastic for doing large parts of scenery. But I also use them for dry brushing because they've got quite a soft head to the brush and they can cover a big area of your miniature. Okay, I'll turn the music down a little bit more. Let's have a look. See, there we are. I've got the desktop audio down a little bit. I'm sorry, Carlos, but I have hundreds and hundreds of paints. But that's because I collect paints like I collect miniatures. My voice is at max level, so I can't turn my voice down. Right, let's go back into that brown. I'm adding a little bit of black, tiny bit of black with that brown now. I actually need more brown on my palette. There we go, get some nice brown on there. Don't be shy of your paints. Get the paints working for you. Now I've got a nice little darker brown, so we can just highlight a bit more of our wood areas. Just adding a tiny bit of very, very dark brown. Actually, I'm actually going to add a little bit more brown to that. There we go, perfect. And we're just adding some more brown here and there. I'm just going over all the wood areas, just highlighting certain parts of the wood. Hi Renegade Shank, you just be careful driving, okay? I'm taking some of this very dark brown, mixing in with some black, and we're going to dry brush that inside this tree trunk, and that'll give a nice shade inside the tree trunk. Nice and simple. And what we'll do is we'll keep it lighter towards the top, but darker around the bottom of the inside of that tree trunk, like that. Doesn't take long to give a little effect. And just keep on going around all this lovely wood. Okay, I'm quite happy with that so far. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go and add some of this bleached bone. We're going to mix it in with that brown. So now we're going from one extreme to the other. We're going to a light brown, very light. And this will give a lovely worn effect to the wood. So what we're going to do on the top, just going across, and all the highest areas, a bit too much on my brush there. There we go. So we're just highlighting the top of the wood, and little parts of the wood. This will just give a nice little effect. It brings out all the details of the wood, and it instantly ages that wood as well. Okay, this is looking fab already. Okay, now we can start going into the greens. Now what we're doing with the greens, we're starting with the darkest green. This is the olive green, and again I'm mixing this in with that brown just to give it a little dark, and I'm just adding brown to everything I'm doing today, so it just all blends in nicely with the base. So this brown just gives that a little bit of colour, but what you're doing is you're adding that green, making it darker, and that's a perfect way to start off with your base of all the greens that we're going to add to this miniature. So what we're doing now is going around all the other areas of the miniature with the green, and we're dabbing this on a bit like stippling, kind of stippling the green on to the base. I hope everybody's getting excited for Halloween and you're all going out in fancy dress and doing some awesome things. I mean, I know it's a bit difficult now with this lockdown, but I know you can still go out in certain parts of the country, so hopefully we'll still have a great time. You see how the brown, that initial brown that I added to the primer, it's really working for this face. Starting off with a brown primer coat is perfect and gives a nice effect for your base. Okay, I'm just going all around the parts that I want with the green. And it's looking awesome already. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a little bit more of the lighter green, and we're going to mix that in, and we're going to start bringing up that greens and bringing out the colours. Yes, it is difficult. I mean, I just said about everybody going out trick-or-treating. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it. Right, I'm just adding this, as you can see, I'm just adding a little bit of the lighter green now, and what we're doing is just bringing those tones up from around the base. Absolutely beautiful. And this is the beauty of painting this way, is you're building up the colours around your base, and you can make little mistakes because we're going to go over with our brush later on, and we'll be picking out little highlights. Like we've got these mushrooms, they'll be painted by hand. We've got these rocks, they'll be painted grey. So what we're doing is all this dry brushing effect, just to bring out the beauty of the miniature. I mean, we can add a little bit of green to the wood as well. You know, the moss is kind of going over the areas of the wood, just little tips there. A little bit of green at the top. Absolutely gorgeous. So we're just flying around the base. We're just going over the areas we went over before with a lighter green. And we're just working away a little bit onto the wood. It just gives it a nice mossy effect to the wood. Okay, I'm now going into that cat's eye green. Now this is my brightest green. I have got like an luminous green, but I like this cat's eye green. It's great for goblins. It's not overly bright, but it will add a nice highlight on top of the green that we've already added. So again, we're going over the areas with the green, this time a little bit lighter. So we're just adding highlights on top of highlights on top of highlights. Now it all depends on your own personal taste how far you want to go with the greens, but as you can see, I'm adding this green to the base now, and you can see it's starting to build up now, and you're getting lighter tones going around the base, and all just by simply adding the darker greens and working your way up. And the same with the wood. Now with all this wood area, There will be brown ink wash added that will really bring out the detail, and we'll do that towards the end of the stream. So what we're going to do now is just carry on with our greens, because I do love adding greens to the wood effects. I like to have like a moss going around the wood, and just adding little highlights here and there, just bringing out the greens. You don't need a lot, but it really does work well on trees. Adding that little bit of green here and there. As you can see, there's little ferns on the trees there, so we can just quickly, just a little flick over those, just to bring out the details of the ferns going down. And like I say, we've got all the mushrooms here. Okay, so that's good for that part. I'll give my brush a wash, and we'll move on now to the painting of the rocks and the mushrooms. Yes, it's crazy how the world is at the minute with all the lockdowns and everything. I do, I mean, Claire and myself, we don't leave the house at all now. It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, for the rocks, what I'm going to do is I am using a monster brush from Army Painter, and what we're going to do is just go over the rocks with our grey. So we're just filling in the rocks. Let's get some picture for you. Now you can use acrylics from any company. Now I know Dwarvenforge have their own paint sets. I've never tried their paints, so I cannot recommend them because I haven't tried them. But they do have sets specifically made to paint the Dwarvenite plastic. I mean, I have like hundreds of paints from different companies, but as you can see, this is MSP paint and it's going on beautifully. It's working very nicely with these miniatures. The initial spray primer paint I used was from Army Painter, so you got your rattle can Army Painter spray. So we're just going over all the rock areas, and once that grey is dry, I will go over the rocks with a black ink wash, and then I shall dry brush over those rocks with that skeleton bone, and that will give a nice little effect. And we'll probably add a little bit of green to the rocks as well, but we just want the initial grey just so you can see the rocks are kind of coming through the actual miniature. Super simple. This is a really nice miniature. When I went to back the Kickstarter, this is the one thing that really jumped out to me, because I love forests and rocks and all that type of thing. So the Dreadhollow set really appealed to me. I mean, no, I can't afford to buy the whole of the Dwarvenforge set, but I managed to get the nice little starter set, as I call it, you know. What I'm doing with the Dwarvenforge is like I said, I can't afford to buy the actual dungeons, but what I've been doing is I've backed every single one of their Kickstarters, and what I do is I buy the miniatures. I mean, on their latest Kickstarter they've got some dragons, so I've purchased the dragons, and a couple of their miniatures for my personal collection. So at least I am supporting a company that I think makes fantastic miniatures. Unfortunately, they are a little bit out of my price range, and I think most of you will agree. It is a very, very expensive hobby getting into Dwarvenforge miniatures. They are beautiful and they are sturdy and they're very heavy. They are, they feel quality, but they are very expensive, and there's no word of a lie there. But if you've got the money, then I would recommend them, but only if you've got the money, because you need a small mortgage to buy a complete set of Dwarvenforge for your dungeons. So there is that. They are expensive. I would personally buy them unpainted because I can paint them myself, and that does save you quite a bit of money. But Dwarvenforge, I've got some of their painted dungeons, and they are spot on. The painting that they do is really good. So you're not getting a really bad quality paint. I mean, I know some companies do their pre-painted miniatures and they're not the best, but Dwarvenforge have got a very nice painted set. Hello, Mighty Lancer Games. It's nice to see Mighty Lancer Games. Always been on to see me. Right, so what we've done there, we've gone over all the grey areas, and as you can see, it's really looking quite nice now. So what we'll do is we're going to move on to the mushrooms. Now for the mushrooms, I like to go old school red, but what I'm going to do is I'm still going to do them red, but I'm going to darken them down a little bit. So we're going with a garnet red. I always, when I started painting all back in the 80s, doing the old fantasy painting, I always added mushrooms to my bases, and there were always those bright red mushrooms, like you see in fantasy. So what I'm going to do is I'm still going to make them red, but a nice dark red. So we're just going to go across all the little mushroomy areas. And what we're going to do is they're going to be darkened off again, but what will happen is, because I'm doing them red, they'll stand out a little bit better and give a little bit more oomph to the base, because it's nice to see these little things standing out. I'm just using the large brush, just quickly going over all these lovely mushrooms. Yes, these reds just work perfectly for your Dwarvenforge miniatures. I'm just trying to find if there's any more little mushrooms hiding around the place. Well, that seems to be about all the little mushrooms. I mean, once this paint is dried, it will darken off a bit, and we are adding ink wash to all these wood areas too. That looks like all the little, yeah. Remember, you can take a lot longer doing your Dwarvenforge items. I'm just trying to get this done in an hour, so what I try to do is speed paint my miniatures for you to see, and to show you how simple and quickly you can get your miniatures done to a little tabletop standard in a short period of time. Let's have a drink of water. Now this little tree that comes with the set, this is a nice little tree. You can take the little top off, and you've also got these little mushrooms here, little mushroom rings. That's the thing with the Dwarvenforge items. They do loads and loads of little added extras, that just to add a little bit of goodness to your dungeons and your games. Okay, what I'm going to do is, that's about as far as I'm going to get with this one. So I need to let this dry, and then we'll add that ink wash. But as you can see, very simple. We're going to add some black to the rocks, and we're going to add brown to all the wood, and you'll see the effect and the change instantly when I add that ink wash. So what we'll do is, I will just put this to the side for a second. Actually, I'll leave it on there. And we'll take a little look-see at these little rings. Maybe they're a bit too small. Yes, we'll go back to this tree. Okay, what we'll do is we'll quickly go over one of the trees so you can see how I got on with the tree. We'll just add the paint like we did before. Just a quick flick over this so you can see how quickly it is to get a nice effect on your trees. Again, some brown. So first of all, go straight into the brown. Again, this has been sprayed with an Army Painter rattle can primer to begin with, and the first thing we do is we're going over the tree trunk with our lighter brown. It seems a little bit odd what I'm doing, but it works. It's a very simple way to get your little trees done and get some nice colours working. Now I'm adding a tiny bit of black to my brown. Oh, that's way too much black. Okay, I'm gonna have to add some more brown to that. Naughty paint. Let me just take some of this off my paintbrush. Happy little trees, yes. Happy little trees. Happy little trees. Okay, so we're just adding a little bit of darkness now. This will just bring out the bark a little bit better around this tree. Inside the tree, we're going back to that dark brown, so that gives a lovely little dark effect inside the tree, because of course this will be darker inside, so we go for our darkest brown inside the tree, like so. Okay, we're going to take some of that paint off, and now we're going back into our skeleton bone. We're going to add a tiny bit of that brown to that skeleton bone. Get my words out, Mikey. And we're just going to highlight this tree a little bit more around the tops. This will give a nice little worn effect. I'm just going around the tops of each of the little roots of the tree. Again, going back into that skeleton bone. This time we're adding a tiny bit of brown, not so much. So it's getting lighter and lighter again to the tops. This will make it look even more worn and ancient. Okay, now we're going back into our dark green. I'm going to work that around the bottom of our tree. The tree stump. Happy little trees, happy to be painted by the Goblin King. Adding the green to the bottom of your bases on anything that's woodland, townhouses in fact, is a fantastic thing to do, because what's happened there is just by adding that green to the bottom of this base, it's given a natural look and effect to the tree stump. So you've got that like mossy effect going around all the bottom of the tree, and that's how it would look in the real world. So what you're trying to do is make it look as real as possible, of course, and by just adding that green to the bottom of that tree stump, it's giving it a lovely little effect. And it's just a simple little thing to do, but it just adds a little bit extra to that miniature. Okay, so what we can do now is we can go back to our red, because we want to keep all the mushrooms the same on all our little miniatures, so they all blend in our little game. So I am going to paint these the same colour I used on the bigger miniature. And like I say, these are MSP paints, and from Reaper Miniatures, and they are working fantastic on these miniatures, no problems at all. I'm sure every acrylic paint will work the same, as long as you've got a decent primer coat down. You won't have any problems with any paints that you use, as long as they're acrylic. Like I say, I used Army Painter Rattle Can Primer. I bought that from Mighty Lancer Games. If you are a patron or become a patron of mine, you get 10% off everything from Mighty Lancer Games in the UK. Now, if you're interested in this red, this is Garnet Red. This is Garnet Red by MSP. It's a beautiful red for painting your little mushrooms. It's got a hint of a browny red, as I'd call it, but it works really well for painting little mushrooms. And once that's dries, as you can see, it goes darker. It works really nicely for your miniature. Okay, let me just clean my brushes, and then we can make a start on doing some ink washes on our main miniature. So we take that little mini back. Well, I'm really happy how these are turning out. These are quite simple little paints. So you can see how simple it is to make a nice little workload for your tabletop games. I mean, if you buy your Dwarvenforge miniatures unpainted, it's not too difficult to make them look acceptable for your tabletop games. I know a lot of people buy their Dwarvenforge miniatures unpainted because they are more affordable, and hopefully this little tutorial, or just showing you how easy it is to paint your Dwarvenforge miniatures, will make you feel a little bit more confident to get your Dwarvenforge tiles painted up. Now this is almost dry, so I think we'll be fine adding some ink wash. What we're going to do, we're going to start with the black ink wash first on top of the grey, and then we'll do the whole of the rest of the miniature with brown. Now for this I use cotton buds on certain areas. These are little cotton buds which I can remove any ink wash from, but for a large miniature like this, just some kitchen towel like so is good to remove any excess ink wash from your miniatures. Excuse me again, just drinking water. Thank you, Carlos. Yes, I'd be quite happy if Dwarvenforge wanted to send me all their unpainted tiles just to do a few videos, but I'm quite happy just to do this little set like this, just to show you what I'm up to. Okay, so let's have a little look-see. I'll get my little Scottish Andy holder out. This is what Scottish Andy made me with his 3D printer, little miniature ink wash holder. Absolutely fantastic, complete with a Goblins of Mordor name and a pokey stick for my paints. Absolutely beautiful. So that's what I that's what I use for my. Let's get this out of the way. You'll have to excuse me. I got not much space, so I'm trying to make space while we get on. So what we're going to do is the rocks first, using a black ink wash. Now it doesn't matter what ink wash you use. You can go with hello Dover Cook. You can go with Army Paint or Games Workshop. I use the Games Workshop ones because they come in the larger little tubs. But MSP, Games Workshop, Valeco, all the companies do ink washes. So it's your own personal choice. Okay, I'm just going to use my monster brush to add the ink wash, and it's just a case of going over all the stone areas with the black ink wash. Keep your little cotton bud handy, and you can just do the little operation. Cotton bud in one hand, ink wash in the other, and you can just take away any excess before it starts going around your miniature. So the little cotton bud just takes up that excess. There we go. I'm really enjoying myself doing this tonight. What I'm going to try and do is on my Tuesday streams, I'm going to try and do all the different companies and all the different things, all my different miniatures that aren't from Reaper Miniatures or WizKids Games, because the thing of it is, I have backed many Kickstarters, and if I just haven't got time to get them all done, so just doing a little Tuesday stream where I can paint some of the miniatures that I've had in the box, you know, for over a year, just sitting there. It gives me pleasure because it's something different, and of course it's something that I want to paint. So, and I think it's nice to show everybody else what the other companies do. So, I'm trying to keep the Tuesdays for all sorts of stuff. It could be Mantic games. It could be anything. Maybe some 3D printing, painting, you know, Hero Forge. It could be all sorts of stuff. I'm just leaving it open so I can do whatever I want. So there we are. We've just added that black, and that just makes a huge difference to the rocks already. All that black has gone into all the recesses of those rocks. Once that ink wash is dry, I will go over the rocks again with that skeleton bone just to highlight the edges. That'll give some nice points to each one of these little rocks. Thank you, Dovercook. Okay, so now this is where the miniature is going to transform, because what we're going to do now is we're going to add our brown ink wash, and this is where it gets quite exciting, because what will happen is everything will pop, and this is really nice. So we're going to give our little Agrax Earthshade. Again, it doesn't matter what company you use your brown from. I'm using Agrax Earthshade from Games Workshop. And this goes over the whole of the rest of the miniature. And this is where you need your tissue. So you can just take off any excess. And I'll have to be quite careful because I'm doing this on the fly, as a rush job, should I say. Because we're trying to get this done in an hour. I don't know what time it is now. Oh, we've got 10 minutes, that's fine. Here's a little puppy. Okay, so Agrax Earthshade, let's plough into it. Now we're going over all the wood first, and this will give a lovely dark shade to all this wood. Absolutely stunning. Everything would just jump and pop, and everything will come to life. Now we're going over everything. We're going over the greens, we're going over the grass, because what happens, I won't have time to show you that tonight, but what happens is once the ink wash is all dried, then we can give a final highlight to our grass. So what I'm using is my tissue, just going across each bit and just taking a tiny bit off, just dabbing the ink. This takes the ink off the top layer and leaves the ink in the recesses of all the miniature. Yes, don't be shy with the ink wash. Just be careful of pooling. If you see any pooling, that's what your tissue's there for. You just take away any pooling of your ink washes. The ink wash is doing the work for you, and that's the key, is making sure you make things easy for yourself. Now, as you can see, this is the wood here, and you watch now, as soon as I add this ink wash, it'll go into all those recesses and every single part of that bark will pop out now. Absolutely beautiful. And that's just the simplicity of adding an ink wash to your miniature. Some people don't like ink washes, but for me they just make everything beautiful. Absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Like I say, you use your tissue as you go around. Your tissue's there for a purpose. It's to get rid of the ink wash, plus it gets rid of some of the ink on the highest layer, so it gives you an instant highlight without having to paint that highlight back onto your miniature. And again, going across all the wood. When we get to the tops of the wood here, we're just dragging that ink wash up, and then we're going to remove that ink wash from the top of the bark. This will make it look totally worn. There we are. And we move our ink wash back down the tree. So like I say, we're covering the whole of the tree, but it's not just a case of slapping on the ink wash. We are adding the ink wash, but we're doing it in a workable form. We're not just slapping it in the ink wash. We are taking away the ink wash. We're controlling that ink wash. We are controlling the pooling of the ink wash, and we're taking away ink wash on certain parts of the miniature to leave a highlight, which saves you painting that highlight on later. Lots of people make the mistake of just dipping their miniatures into a pot of ink wash and saying, look at that, it's done. It doesn't work that way. Yes, you can do a whole army and dip your miniatures in ink wash, but if you want a nicer looking effect, just take away the pooling, and on the highest areas of the miniature where you've added that ink wash, remove that ink wash and you'll get instant highlights all over the miniature. It's a simple little thing to do, but it makes a huge difference. Pooling with ink wash is the worst thing possible to make your miniature look ugly. You don't want big pools of black ink wash on your miniature, so you just keep an eye where the ink wash is and it will work in your favor. But as you can see, just going around this miniature now, because we've done all that highlighting before I added the ink wash, everything is popping beautiful and it absolutely looks fantastic. I mean, there we are. It's quick, simple paint. It's taking me an hour. What is it, 45 minutes now? And we've got a beautiful looking centerpiece, a little centerpiece that you can work with your tabletop games. Yes, acrylics are fantastic. Now, my workshop is very hot at the minute, so they do dry a lot faster. But normally, when I'm doing batches of armies, say I'm painting 10 miniatures, by the time I get to the 10th miniature that I'm working on, I can go back to the first miniature and just keep on ploughing into my miniatures. I don't have to worry about drying times, so that's always really good. Okay, we just add onto these mushrooms now, and we're just going to take a little bit away from the tips of the mushrooms. And now we'll just do inside the tree. We'll start at the bottom and just work our way up a little bit. Now inside the tree we can keep that dark because it's going to be a shade inside the tree, so we're just pulling the ink wash up the inside of the tree. We're not going to the top, it's just taking the ink wash away before we reach the top of the tree, just so we leave a little bit of light at the top there. That's all we need to do. So we're just getting a nice kind of shade going up the tree. Okay. So that's about all we can do for this miniature at this time, because the ink wash will take at least an hour to dry. But as you can see, just by adding that ink wash, it's transformed the whole thing, and all the details are now popping. We can still go over the miniature, because what will happen is your ink wash will still be kind of settling, and if you see any kind of deep pulls, we can get rid of those with our little tissues. But as you can see, all the details on the tree and everything is all popping out now. That's a fantastic looking miniature for your games. Awesome stuff. Once that's dried as well, you won't be getting the shine. Okay, so what we'll do is I don't know what time are we on? Oh, we were at finish time. That was a super fast hour, wasn't it? Pop, pop, pop. So there we are. That's my awesome little Dwarvenforge tree stump. Like I say, I can't do much more to this now because it needs to dry. But the basis of it is once this has all dried, what we do is we'll just go over those little mushrooms a little bit more, and we'll just highlight the edges of the mushrooms. And also the rocks will go over with a skeleton bone, and we'll just highlight the edges of these rocks and maybe the tops of the trees. But there we are. That's how simple it is to get a lovely little effect for your Dwarvenite pieces for your tabletop games. Simple. Now what I'll do is I have got a few other items from Dwarvenforge, so we shall do a few more streams because I really enjoyed that. That was great fun. I've got hello the Bull GM, and thank you. Yes, I'm really happy with this. It's not bad for a quick hour's paint. So there we are. I will be doing some more Dwarvenforge painting. I hope you all enjoyed this show. Thank you all so much for popping in and watching my stream, as you always do. Loads and loads of love to everybody. My next stream now is on Thursday, and we will be back to our Reaper miniatures. So I'll wish you all good night and loads of love to all of you. And you take care out there, okay? So good night, everybody.